Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras, and today is Monday Fun Day.
I stop what you're doing, cause I'm about to ruin the image of me that you're used to. I look money, a king bee making honey, see? Deep state, I hope you're ready for me. Now gather round, I'm the new sheriff in town. All my people rise up and stand your ground. Now drink up all the Diet Coke you got on your shelf. So just let me introduce myself, my name is Trump D. I like my mashed potatoes lumpy. Fake news, oh how I like to punk thee. That little sniper on the slope tin, he took a shot but he missed me. I don't fall, y'all, I'm like the ever-ready bunny. Still going strong and spunky. So put on your big boy pants. Come on, let's do the dance.
The Trumpy dance is your chance to do the Trump.
Come on, do the Trumpty Trump. Come on and do the Trumpty Trump. Check me out, y'all. We do the Trumpty Trump. Just watch me do the Trumpty Trump. Do you know what I'm doing? We do the Trumpty Trump. Come on, everybody do the Trumpty Trump. It's time to do the Trumpty Trump. Yeah, my favorite dish
Is a double Big Mac. Yeah, that's right. My favorite dish is a double Big Mac. We're having a good time here on Monday, Fun Day, on to the Rundown. Look, I got to apologize. I know the last couple of weeks have been kind of sketchy. Been sometimes doing shows, sometimes not doing shows. Mike has been, work has just been keeping him busy, and I'm happy for him because, hey, look, we all got bills to pay, right? And for me, because I'm doing a lot of things, I'm really involved in this upcoming election, especially with the local county party and whatnot, things going on. Stuff just comes up. And so I appreciate your patience. I appreciate that when we are here, that you are here. So thank you once again. Very much appreciate you. We're here to have a good time because there's tons of stuff to talk about and interesting stuff. The hardest part right now is just figuring out what not to talk about because there's so many different things. I could spend a lot more time, but I'm not. I'm not because, well, once again, things have not changed in the aspect of me having stuff that I got to do and stuff I got to get done. So anyway, all that having been said, we're going to have a good old time, which y'all here. We're looking forward to it. We're very much looking forward to it. So let's kick the show off the way we usually do, and that would normally be with a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with the folks at Hitman Industries. They make rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length. All you got to do is go to hitmanindustries.net, pick the barrel you want, pick the caliber you want, pick the length that you want, and check it out today. Go ahead and start your next project, start your next adventure with Hitman Industries. And then we've got the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives at all level of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. In fact, Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. You need to find out why. Just go to cragop.org. That's cragop.org today. Now, let's talk about the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market. You will find them at hogholsters.com. No, it's spelled a little different. It's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. That's what they like to do. In fact, they like to do it so much, they're going to give you your hog holster on discount. All you have to do is use the discount code THERUNDOWN. All caps, one word, no spaces, just like it is right up there. And you can get your hog holster on discount today. Then we've got the best not the best, but the best place to go and buy your gear. Look, let me tell you something. If you're looking for gear, I don't care what kind of gear it is, you will find all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. They have a huge selection of stuff, right? They have really competitive pricing. In fact, they specialize in group sales. So go there, check them out today. They have really great customer service. So get your group together, get your agency together, and head on over to uscombatgear.com. Once again, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. Also want to encourage you, if you haven't already done so, please make sure to sign up for the 2A newsletter. It's real simple. If you like Second Amendment stories, right? If you like reading about the various different things that are going on, you want to read not just from the mainstream media, but from the Second Amendment media, people who are focused on the Second Amendment, this is the website you need to go to. Or not just the website, you need to go to the website and sign up right up here in the subscribe area because, well, then you get all of this sent directly to your email every day, Monday through Friday. You will get it. You'll get the blogs. You'll get the blogosphere. You'll get all of the content. You'll get all of the video content, all of the cool video content that's out there. You will get product reviews. You will get deals that are available for you out there. All of that will be available for you once again at 2anews.us, 2anews.us. And now I also want to announce, this is something very, very new. So I've been working on two books. I did one book and I didn't quite, I mean, it's almost done, but it made me decide that I wanted to write a separate book. I wanted to do something hearkening back to Thomas Paine's Common Sense, except I wanted to write it, if Thomas Paine were writing it today, what would he write? And he would actually write something called Uncommon Sense. And that's exactly what this is. Once again, it harkens back to 1776, Thomas Paine, and talking about how we can do better with government, the things that we need to be looking out for, the actions that we need to be taking, right? In order to make our country great once again. It's real simple. Just like Thomas Paine's Common Sense, it's a pamphlet. It's a short pamphlet. It ain't that much. And it's really, really cheap. It's like $5, right? $5. Now, you can't tell me that you can't afford to learn more about this. You cannot tell me that you cannot afford to learn more about what's going on, how we can make our country better. Pick up your copy of Uncommon Sense, on the present state of American government and a return to first principles, by none other than yours truly, Craig DeLuz. Go there, buy it, go to Amazon, buy it now. Don't wait. Okay, look, I'll wait for you. Go ahead. I'll give you a few minutes, give you some time. Have you bought it yet? Okay, go there, buy it, help a brother out. All right. Now, I also want to remind you, if you're watching this show during the 3 o'clock hour on the West Coast or during the 6 o'clock hour on the East Coast, you are watching us live, and we would love to hear what you have to say about the program, about our thoughts on a particular subject, even if you disagree. In fact, if you disagree, there's a greater chance that we're going to wind up reading your comments to the audience because, well, it also then gives us the opportunity to mock you.
Oh, wow. Is that a mockingbird?
Man, is that a mockingbird? Is that a mockingbird?
That's right. As our good friends would say, we will mock you. All right, let's go ahead and let's get into today's news, shall we? This first one here is kind of interesting because, you know, a lot has been made about the president and his whole thing with regarding immigration, but or at least regarding naturalization or birthright citizenship. But one of the things that the executive does have a significant amount of power over is who we allow to come into the country. And that is done through our visa process. And one of the things that's been interesting, and one of the ways in which President Trump has done a lot to try and defend us and defend our way of life, has been by restricting those who are allowed to come into our country. In fact, the State Department has yanked more than 175,000 visas under the Trump administration, and that's the kind of the subject of a piece over at Fox News. Fox News here is reporting. It says here the majority of the visas were revoked due to law enforcement encounters for a range of criminal activity, the department noted. It says here the U.S. State Department announced on Monday that it has revoked more than 175,000 visas during President Trump's administration so far. The announcement comes with less than 2 years since Trump started his second term. Quote, under President Trump, the United States Department of State has revoked more than 170,000 visas from foreign nationals who violated the terms of their visas, committed crimes, called for violence against U.S. citizens, defrauded Americans, abused our immigration system, or endanger national security, the State Department noted. And I need you to understand this, and this is why this is so vitally important, is because people want you to believe that, well, this is just him being racist, right? This is President Trump, and he's a racist, and so therefore he's going to go out of his way to make it so that people don't, so that he's going to go out of his way to keep, quote unquote, those people out of the country. Those people specifically who they're referring to, well, it ain't just a group of nobodies. These are people who have literally, as has been noted, violated the terms of the agreement that they signed when they wanted to come here to the United States. And that's kind of noted right here in this video.
We have a continuous vetting program that we've implemented here at the State Department to ensure that we're not going to have a scenario where we allow foreigners here on visas to endanger the American people by driving drunk on our streets. So we announced prominent examples of that just recently. This continues actually on a much wider effort. We have seen over 100,000 visas be revoked, primarily due to criminal activity, with one of the primary criminal elements of that being DUIs. So we've been very clear on this, and this is fundamentally about protecting the American people. Fundamentally, if you break the law, that is grounds for revocation. If you break the law, you break the terms of your visa, or you undermine the national security of the United States, that is grounds for revocation of your visa. So when someone applies for a visa, we vet them very thoroughly. But then when someone is in the United States or has that visa, we continually vet that person. So breaking the law is grounds for revocation. Well, one of the examples actually highlighted was someone that caused bodily injury to someone because they were driving drunk. Another example was someone who showed up, drove drunk, had a court-mandated DUI program, and then showed up drunk to that court-mandated DUI program. Driving drunk on streets is incredibly dangerous. It's part of a broader initiative from the Trump administration to make sure that our streets are safe, and that includes...
And that's one of the things that is lost, and when I say lost, it's more left out that the media has done is, almost all of this immigration enforcement has been around the idea of criminals, people who are once again violating the law in being here. Not just immigration law, but in many cases when they're going after individuals, when they have these, they're not just, for example, they're not just showing up at Home Depots. They're not just showing up certain places. These are places where they've done investigations, and they're hunting for or looking for specific people who either already have active deportation orders against them, meaning their cases have already been adjudicated. They've already gone through the process. They've had their due process, and they've been told it's time for you to go. And they haven't gone. Or people who have actually committed crimes. In cases like this, they're referring to drunk driving. And I'm sorry, but you just heard some of the instances that they're talking about where you have some pretty egregious situations. In any case, a lot of these people, they're here and they're here as guests, right? Someone as a guest in your home violates the rules of the house. Eventually you're gonna ask them to leave, right? You're not going to have the same patience with them probably that you do for someone who actually lives in the home. Well, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about guests who have overstayed their welcome, and it's time for them to go. And what gets me though, and now in this case, we're talking about these visas. Once again, these are people who are doing bad things, right? Now, there's some, okay, well, are they actually, well, you're like, what about the people who you said were threatening? Well, first of all, if you're threatening violence against American citizens or American institutions, you need to go. If you are threatening uprising or encouraging uprising the way some of these folks have been doing, then I'm sorry, you need to go. If your goal in being here, if the part of the reason you are here is so that you can foment hate for this country, you need to go. I'm sorry, your guest privileges have been revoked. And I have nothing wrong with that. I know that some people on the left may have a problem with that, but guess what? You as an American citizen, if you are an American citizen, you have a right to be here. You have a right to speak. You have a right to speak your mind. If you are a foreigner, if you are someone who is here as a visa, you are formally a guest. And if you want to act an ass while you're here as a guest, well then guess what? You get to get kicked in that ass on the way out. You need to go. I'm sorry, but you do. Now, if American citizen decides they want to talk trash, fine, you go ahead and talk trash. Let's put it this way. If you're a naturalized citizen and come to find out that you lied about why you came here, you lied about being here, you lied about that's a whole different story. I don't know where the courts are going to come down in the revocation of your legal residency or citizenship at that point. I really don't know where the courts will come down. I'm going to guess that they're going to be against it. I'm guessing that they're probably going to say, well, you know what? If this person was smart enough to fool you into getting citizenship, well, then they get all the rights and benefits thereof. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm not saying I support that. I'm saying I'm going to guess that's what the law would say. And I don't think I'd be wrong. I genuinely don't. I wish I was wrong on that one, but I don't think I am. I don't think I'd be wrong on that one. In any case, suffice it to say, I'm glad to hear this. And once again, this makes our community safer. I want you to understand this. Cities across the country are talking about record low crime, record low murders, record low fentanyl overdoses. Now, it's amazing how they all want to start taking credit for that. They're all like, oh, well, we did it. But it didn't start till Trump became president. I know you don't want to give Trump credit for it, but it is what it is. I mean, he gets credit for it because he's president of the United States, and it ain't just happening in your city. It's happening all over the country as they have cracked down, as the FBI, has done a phenomenon under Kash Patel, has really cracked down on crime. We've seen as they've worked, by the way, with local law enforcement. Let me be clear. They didn't do it on their own. They did it working with local law enforcement, but all that having been said, we've seen the crime go down. There's evidence of it. Anyway, good stuff. Good stuff is happening. And once again, this is just one example of the sort of things that are happening under the Trump administration that, once again, a lot of people will not give Donald Trump credit for. But we're going to go ahead and ring it in and say, yeah, that is a good thing. And part of the reason why that is, and there's another part of the reason why we're starting to see these things happen, and that is because of all the crackdowns that have been taking place, whether it was sending the National Guard, whether it was offering opportunities for this particular case, talking about offering tens of millions of dollars for a Memphis-style police surges. And that's one of the things that we've seen, once again, working with local law enforcement. There's tons of videos of people really kind of praising, what's happened. Now, they're not necessarily giving Donald Trump credit, but they're like, look, I don't know if I wanted federal troops here, federal law enforcement here, but since they've been here in Memphis specifically, it's a lot safer. It's a lot safer to go out. And the president, once again, deserves a lot of credit for that. This is a piece over in The Guardian. Trump officials offer cities tens of millions for Memphis-style police surges. DOJ to give $300 million for enforcement surges in 4 cities as long as they abandon progressive ideology on policing. Now, this is not just saying, well, you got to become Trump cities. You got to become MAGA world. It's saying these policies that you have make it difficult for you to effectively police. So we're not going to spend good money after bad. Anyway, let's read this. It says the Trump administration is offering grants of tens of millions of dollars to cities across the U.S. to create more Memphis-style enforcement surges on the condition that they abandon progressive ideologies on policing. The U.S. Department of Justice says it will announce up to four finalist cities that will split $300 million in grant funding under a federal model cities policing initiative, MCI, next month, setting the stage for some of the largest federal policing grants ever awarded to individual U.S. cities. In exchange for the funding, cities are required to comply with federal immigration enforcement requests, enact conservative policies on anti-homelessness rules, and potentially repay millions of dollars in the event of a surge in violent crime or civil unrest, according to a grant document. The document cites Washington, D.C. and Memphis, Tennessee, 2 cities with National Guard troops patrolling the streets as a model to emulate. The administration has so far defied calls to suspend its controversial task force in Memphis following four officer-involved deaths since its launch last September. Quote, "It's not a model I'd be looking for," said Steve Reed, the mayor of Montgomery, Alabama. Reed said he had seen the grant and passed on applying. Quote, everybody wants a quick fix and nobody wants to invest in the root cause issue, he said. Despite the significant funding boost on offer, Reed said one of several leaders of large municipalities with Democratic majorities who have signaled they will not even consider applying for the grant. Now, I want you to understand this. These are cities. Larger cities tend to be higher crime cities. They need help. They say they don't support defunding the police, but yet when given the opportunity to provide more funding for the police, they say no. When it comes down to saying, hey, if we call you, if the federal government calls you and says, you have an illegal immigrant who has committed a crime, please let us know when you're about to let him out. We want to come get him. And they say, no, we're not going to do that. These are people who are saying, the people in your neighborhoods, the people who run your businesses, the people who live in your cities, maybe you don't, inundate them with homeless people. Maybe you find a way to not allow homeless people to get away with committing crimes. Right? That's all we're going to require of you. And they say, nope, not going to do that. Now, mind you, these are officials. This guy from Montgomery, Alabama has said, I care more about the people committing crimes. Whenever you hear the root causes issue, that means I'm more concerned about taking care of the criminals than I am the crime victims. I care more about the criminals, the homeless criminals, the illegal immigrant criminals than I do the taxpayers of the city that elected me. That's what they're saying. He won't admit that's what he's saying, but that is exactly what he is saying. A lot of that can be handled. A lot of that can be fixed. I mean, why not have a program that says, look, if you're homeless and you commit a crime, we're going to deal with that. We're not going to allow you just get away with it. People do what they will get away with. Hey, what does that say? Behavior that you tolerate, you will never eliminate. The reason why illegal immigrants flock to your cities is because they know that they can come there and they can commit crimes and you will hide them from immigration. That's why they do it. That's why they come there. And you're okay with that? I get it. I get the electeds are. My question to you, the citizens, if you lived in Montgomery, Alabama, how would you feel about that? Would you be cool with that? I don't think so. I'm willing to bet that you would not be okay with it. I know I sure as heck wouldn't be. Of course, I doubt that my city, the city where I live, the city of Sacramento, is doing that. Maybe the county, because I think we have a sheriff, interestingly enough, a sheriff who's a Democrat, who's actually interested in enforcing the law. Anyway, I will give him much credit. I will continue to sing the praises of Sheriff Jim Cooper because he has been doing a phenomenal job. Much better. Well, the guy before him was doing a good job too. And let me be wrong, but the guy before him was a Republican. I expected him to do a good job, right? He was sheriff for 12 years. I expected him to do a good job. I didn't expect a Democrat to do a good job. I honestly didn't. And I should have. Anyway. I am very glad that I was wrong about Mr. Cooper, and I'm glad that he is doing a very, very good job. And we'll be voting for him. We'll be voting for him again. Not saying, just saying. Good dude. Anyway, but a lot of cities, man, they're going to say no. And here's the key. Here's the key for a lot of you folks to understand. A lot of you folks, if you live in a big city, like I live in a relatively big city, the city of Sacramento, if it's a major metropolitan area, chances are it's Democrat run. And if it's Democrat run, that means chances are they're not going to go after this money. And if it is Democrat run, here's the deal, because we've got two Democrat run cities, Memphis and Washington, D.C., where these sorts of surges have paid off. Now we're about to have 4 more examples, and it's going to pay off. Then what are cities like Oakland going to say? What are cities like San Francisco going to say? What are cities like Los Angeles going to say? Many of them are already saying, like in Baltimore, they're saying, well, we've already reduced crime in our communities. Well, that's largely because of work that the president's done already. If not directly in your city, indirectly indirectly helping your city. But I digress. Anyway, will be very, very interesting to see where that winds up. Anyway, moving right along. Talk about protecting us. In this case, we're talking about protecting kids. Now, I always wondered as a parent and now a grandparent, I've seen the whole, like you go in and they just dump all these different shots and vaccines on kids, and it ain't the best. It ain't the best situation. In fact, the fact that some of those vaccinations could probably be put off seems to make sense. In fact, when I still remember when I asked my children's doctor, well, why do we have to do all of these now? Well, just because it's quick and convenient is really what it came down to. It wasn't that, well, if we delay this one or we delay that one, it's gonna negatively impact them. It really didn't make that big of a difference. So in essence, what wound up happening was, we said, okay, well, now the president, I'm sure at the behest of our Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., he has decided that he is going to delay or at least spread out childhood vaccines. And once again, he's doing this against some medical groups' guidance. But let's read that article real quick over at the Associated Press. It says here, President Donald Trump on Monday signed an executive order calling for revamped childhood vaccine recommendations that promote his long-held but discredited theory that childhood shots should be spaced out into separate medical visits. Once again, you notice they say discredited, but they never really offer how it was discredited. Anyway, let's keep reading. The order advocates separating the measles, mumps, and rubella MMR vaccine into 3 different single disease shots and administering all childhood immunizations at separate appointments whenever possible. It also directs the nation's health department to improve research on vaccines, which are already extensively studied, and present a plan to offer separate measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines for children, since that is not currently an option in the United States. Speaking about the order from the Oval Office on Monday, Trump repeatedly suggested that the number or timing of vaccines could play a role in rising rates of autism spectrum disorder, even as scientific consensus and decades of studies have firmly concluded there is no link. The order also includes several changes to the childhood vaccine schedule that his health department has already attempted, but that has been blocked by a federal judge. The renewed focus on vaccines marks a departure from his administration's recent efforts to emphasize less controversial health policies related to healthy eating, drug price negotiations, and medical fraud crackdowns ahead of November's midterm elections. Now, I'm just going to say this. I am not a scientist. So when I say follow the science, I prefer if we follow the science. The problem is that for decades, and when they say for decades, one of the things that we've done is we've pretty much handed everything over to the pharmaceutical companies. When it comes to testing their vaccines, we only trust the only data we ever get. We don't do our own data. We get our data from them. We don't, we don't take our own. We don't do something independent of the pharmaceutical companies. We get all our data, all of our information from the people we're getting the vaccines from. As they put together some of these things, I don't know how much I trust their data. How do I know I can't trust their data? Well, I got a pretty good example of how they do things during COVID, right? We now know during COVID that they misrepresented the COVID vaccine. We know that they misrepresented how safe it was. We know that they misrepresented how effective it was. We know that they misrepresented the alternatives to the COVID vaccine. The reality is this has less to do with not trusting the vaccines than it does not trusting the people who provide the vaccines. This is more of a check on the pharmaceutical companies than it is a check on or concern over actual vaccines. And as we are getting people who want to start to expand vaccines, I get it. Most of the vaccines that we have right now have been around for decades. And we know the long-term effects because we've seen the long-term effects and we've had the ability to study them long-term. Things, though, like where you still have people who want to make the COVID vaccine, they want to make it mandatory. And they want to make it a childhood vaccine, right? They don't necessarily want to do it as an adult. They want to make it a childhood vaccine. And so a lot of this is not necessarily about protecting us from the vaccines that we have now, but protecting us going into the future. If there's no reason why we can't space out the vaccines, and I've yet to see any arguments as to why it's a bad idea to space out these vaccines, because guess what? If we space them out and then we see a significant decrease in things like autism and other birth defects, if that happens, well, then guess what? Maybe we did find the problem. But if it doesn't happen and there's no rise in anything else, if none of these other diseases, there's no increase, then what's the problem? That's what I don't get. It's like they don't want any discussion. Science is not, okay, there's no such thing as okay, this is the done deal, right? Science is always challenging, right? You're always looking and saying there's always got to be at least one skeptic. One person's going to say, well, what about this? Well, what about this? There's always got to be testing. And if it's settled science, well, then guess what? Every single time you go to test it, it'll come up the same, which will then further prove it. But as soon as, like when they came out, they said, "Oh yeah, no, it's dead. It'll reduce, no matter what. It'll reduce your likelihood of getting COVID. You're not going to get COVID. You'll be able to go out and do whatever. You're not going to get sick from COVID. It's wholly safe." And they had no science behind it, and they wanted to call it settled science. You get guys like Anthony Fauci, he says, "I am science." And they want you to follow the science. And then if you say no, well, then you're a denier. You're a vaccine denier. No, I'm just like this. I know that the medical community doesn't give us all the information. I know that. I know that between the medical companies, the pharmaceutical companies, and the government, in particular those on the left, they don't want to give us all of the information because they're afraid we won't make the decision that they want us to make. And so because of that, they feel like they need to guide us to the solution down the path that they want us to go. And so to do that, they give us only the information we need to make the decision that they want. And I no longer trust them. I do not. I'm not saying they're lying. I'm saying that I'm going to check and see if you're lying. I'm going to check and see if you're giving me all of the information, if you're giving me accurate information. Is there stuff that you're leaving out? Right? I got to do that now. In order to be your own advocate, you got to kind of do that these days. Because you just can't. Then there's insurance companies. We didn't even mention the insurance companies. There's no way of being sure. And so you have to be careful. You have to pay attention. You got to say, yeah, I'm going to check but verify. Trust but verify. I think that's the phrase. Trust but verify. Okay, our last story here today has to do with our good friend, the Islamicist or the Islamo-fascist, the Islamo-communist, whatever you want to call him. I don't know what. Anyway, the guy who just won the nomination, the Democratic nomination for Senate in Michigan, Abdul al-Sayed. Let's be honest. What's funny is that this is a guy who claims to be about working people, but he's not supported by working people. He claims to want to support people of color, but he's not supported by people of color. He claims to want to be he claims he wants to be a man of the people, but he's not really supported by a bunch of people. It's largely the Muslim community and educated white people are the ones who seem to be putting him in place, and in particular, white liberals. In fact, there's a piece over at the Washington Free Beacon, An Inconvenient Rift, Abdul al-Sayed's black voter problem. His allies have a history of radically charged outbursts. The Michigan Senate primary exposed an inconvenient rift in the Democratic coalition. Abdul al-Sayed, the Israel-obsessed anti-capitalist candidate, narrowly defeated the establishment choice, Haley Stevens, by racking up huge margins among college-educated white voters. Most black and working-class voters preferred Stevens, notwithstanding al-Sayed's shady financial arrangement with prominent black pastor who endorsed him days before the election. As much as Democrats would like to patch things up after a bitterly contested race, there's a reason to believe the unpleasantness could fester regardless of how the midterms play out. Republican nominee Mike Rogers is already working to win over disaffected black working class and Jewish voters heading into the general election. Meanwhile, al-Sayed's efforts to rebuild the coalition may prove complicated given the company he keeps. One of the first videos Republicans put out after the election was a compilation of al-Sayed surrogate Hassan Piker disparaging black people on his Twitch live stream. Quote, "Any other black folk want to engage in radical activist language on this effing chat? Suck my effing C," Piker said in 2025. He was responding to a comment who criticized his assessment of black voting behavior and pointed out that he was far more interested in the Gaza conflict while ignoring the ongoing slaughter of black civilians in Sudan. Last month, Piker lashed out at Representative Jim Clyburn, a Democrat from South Carolina, one of the party's most prominent and respected black leaders. He's not someone whom an ambitious Democrat or activist would typically choose to antagonize. Piker wasn't pleased when the DNC chose South Carolina to host the first primary in 2028 election. Why not? Because the state's predominantly black electorate has historically favored moderate candidates over left-wing firebrands. Quote, I also think an 88-year-old man, he will be that age by 2028, should almost single-handedly decide the early front-runner in Dem primaries, Piker sneered sarcastically. Will Lawrence, one of two left-wing candidates al-Sayed successfully backed in Michigan's congressional primaries, has been more explicit in his animosity toward Democratic Party's black elders. Quote, the extent to which the older generation of black political leadership are such a pillar, frankly, for establishment, capitalist, imperialist, American power, it's a big problem, he said in 2024. It really defangs the white left and puts us in impossible positions, really. The whole point they're making here is that, they want left-wingers to win. They want DSA candidates or Democratic Socialists of America to win. They want socialists to win. There's a problem, though, and that's that most black folks are not socialists. Most black folks are capitalists. They believe in our form of government. Most black folks don't want to eliminate the Senate. Most black folks don't want to eliminate the Supreme Court. Most black folks don't want to eliminate the democratic form of government that we have. They don't, I hate to say this, they don't want rich white liberals making all the decisions. And that's exactly what DSA wants. Yeah, they get out there and they support a few token people of color, but it's overwhelmingly rich, it's overwhelmingly white, and very much overeducated. And here's the funny part. So they're not just when I say overeducated, I mean they're educated and they can't get jobs, right? Because they graduate from college and they think They're supposed to get a mid-level or an upper-level job somewhere. They're supposed to get their dream job coming straight out of college. That doesn't happen. That didn't happen to my generation. That didn't happen to my son's generation. That didn't happen to my parents' generation. First, you get a job. Then you start working towards the job. I had a young dude, a Gen Xer, who was working with me, working for one of my clients. He thought because I had flexibility in how I did things and when I did things and what my schedule looked like and when I was going to be available, that he did. I'm like, dude, let me be clear. I'm your supervisor, not your subordinate and not your peer, right? I'm old enough to be your daddy. I've got decades of experience over you, bruh. And yet you think you're entitled to the same pay, the same. And by the way, let me also mention, yeah, I do 2 to 3 times as much work, and I'm literally only a part-time contractor. You're there full time. And I'm still running circles around you. And these people, once again, this generation, they seem to think that they should be getting paid the same, that they deserve the dream job. No, you know what? It took me decades to start to get the jobs that I really, really wanted. I worked my way towards them. But that's how these folks are. That's how these DSA folks are. Anyway, but that's a huge chunk of the DSA. Are those people, the people who are trying to, get the right job and who think that something is owed to them, right? They're thinking, oh, well, I can't afford my own place. I'm sorry, but my entire adult life, I had roommates. No, seriously, I've never had my own place, ever. I went from living at home with my parents when I was in high school, right? Shared a room with my brother. Went to college, was in the dorms, had a roommate in the room, right? Had to share a room with a roommate in college. Now, I eventually had my own room when I moved to an apartment, but I still had my own place. I still had roommates. Graduated from college, moved to Sacramento. Guess what? Had roommates. Got married. We got our own place. Guess what? I had the same roommate now for 33 years. But for some reason, you think you deserve. Come on now. You think you deserve your own place. Really? It's just dumb. I'm sorry. It's just dumb. It is literally just dumb. It's this. People don't understand that right now, Gen Zers, you live a much better lifestyle, the amenities and the things that you have available to you now is way more than what we had in our generation. I mean, think about it. You have a computer in your frigging pocket that can access information from all over the globe. You're not stuck to the 3 channels plus maybe 1 or 2 local channels that we had growing up. We didn't have gluten-free food. We didn't have we did have sugar-free. We had sugar-free. We don't have gluten-free. We didn't have, all of these various different selections, and I mean the type of food that you have access to now that we didn't have access to. Come on. No, trust me. We didn't have like cheap 50-inch TVs. If you had a 50-inch TV, you was a baller back in my day, back when I was your age. But can't tell y'all nothing. We cannot tell y'all anything because y'all know everything. Anyway, but that's who these DSAers are playing off of. That's who they're trying to take advantage of. And in the end, black folks ain't buying it, is kind of the point that I'm making. Anyway, all right, folks, that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and get your hog holster today. All of our parting shots today are going to be brought to you by the Babylon Bee, fake news you can trust. Now, you might have heard that AOC did a big announcement that she is freezing her eggs. It was kind of her pseudo way of announcing that she is running for president of the United States. That having been said, she has inspired another individual. Inspired by AOC, James Tallarico also elects to have his eggs frozen. Well, what do you know? Yeah. Funny stuff. Then you've got, oh, here we go. Cute 5-year-old, white girl dreams of one day getting beat up in the WNBA. Yeah, because that's what white privilege is. You might have heard this story. This was crazy. I didn't, once again, talk about having a bunch of stuff to report. This player basically mugs Sophie Cunningham. Mugs, I mean, we're talking just, this is assault and battery in many states. And then, and I did not believe this happened. I have to confess, I did not believe that this happened initially because somebody made it sound like it happened right there on the court where they started talking about white privilege. But no, it did happen, but it happened a little later where the person then later blamed the fact that she got ejected, blamed it on white privilege. So yeah, that's what white privilege is, getting beaten up by in a WNBA game. Oh, here's another one. Bigotry rears ugly head as WNBA refuses to allow this stunning, beautiful woman into the league. For those of you who do not know, that is Enes Kanter, former NBA player, 6'10", 250 pounds, who basically made himself eligible for the WNBA draft. Him and another guy, I think the guy's name is Ross White. Both of them made themselves eligible for the WNBA draft because they now identify as women. Now, I saw something today, and I have not fact-checked it, but it said breaking news: the WNBA has accepted Enes Kanter Freedom's declaration of eligibility for the WNBA draft. It could be fake news. I will be the first to tell you. I have not had a chance to check it, to verify it, but it's interesting enough and funny enough that I had to at least mention it. And then finally here, Senate joins the rest of the nation holding Fauci in contempt. That is, except of course, the people who are who just love them some Fauci. I don't know what's the matter with y'all, but anyway. And then finally, this was from 2021. I saw this one. I said, Biden to solve poverty with $1 trillion per hour minimum wage, because that's how Biden solves problems. Right. All right, folks. Well, that brings us to the end of our program. But before we go, we're going to do one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol caliber barrels, available for you to purchase at hitmanindustries.net. Got the best. We've got the conscience of the Republican Party. Learn more about them at cragop.org. We've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then finally, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. That would be at uscombatgear.com. And with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a day. We will be back tomorrow. So till then, y'all have fun. Stay safe, and we will see y'all mañana.